Welcome to the Wandering Dotterill. I dare say if you found this content intriguing, if you enjoy what you're hearing, please share. If there's someone out there that you can share this with that will help them, please do so. And once again, thank you, Spotify.
This is not a dream.
We must move from a victim mentality to being an overcomer. That means being an active participant in our healing. Once we realize that we can no longer allow the blame game, the shame game, or to be the scapegoat, or the pariah, the outcast, and the one that felt that nothing would change, then and only then will we be victorious, moving past pointing fingers and becoming an active participant in our own healing. Did you know that long-term opioid addiction can cause problems if you've been treated for chronic pain or chronic illness and a doctor prescribes narcotics or opioids? Take it from someone who's had a lot of surgery. Years ago, my journey with opioid addiction started because my doctor offered me samples, and I had been in a car accident, and my back was hurting, and my back was hurting so bad that the doctor said, it's all in your head. You don't need an MRI. Well, several months later, I ended up getting an MRI and needing to have back surgery because I had herniated discs and ruptured vertebrae. Which were excruciating. The pain level was horrible. Long-term opioid addiction can cause multiple problems. And one of those problems is being scrutinized for being an opioid user. Even if it's the doctor giving it to you, they will scrutinize your need for those pain relievers. And the stigma surrounding that is huge. People in the community look at you like you're doing something wrong. But the vast majority of people that I know and have known, especially the elderly, this is something that they receive regularly. What is the problem with that? The problem is that opioids cause multiple issues within the body physiologically. One, you've got the addiction problem. Two, you've got the need to take the medication because you become addicted. Three, there's a high chance of overdose. And then there's the adrenal gland dysregulation. And the shortness of breath and issues along the line with the stigma, which creates an issue for the person that takes the opioids. It's a circle of constant problems for the person taking the opioids. One time, I had to have surgery, and this was a few years into my journey with narcotics, taking them legally. And when I woke up in the middle of the surgery, the doctors were shocked, and I actually had a conversation with them. And then during recovery, I flopped on the table like a fish. And the attitude of the nurses and doctors was atrocious. They treated me like I was an alien, like I didn't come from the same planet.
Huh?
They were rude. They harassed me. They treated me It took me a scary instance with myself to overdose and be vulnerable, and to have a new doctor prescribe me Narcan. And when we discussed the situation, I became more aware, and the more aware I became, the more responsible I became for my own health. And I'm a staunch believer that you must stand up to your doctor, and you must say, there's a certain level that I won't go to anymore. There's a certain level of awareness I have now, and I'm in charge of my body. I'm in charge of what goes into my body. And I'm not going to be harassed about being an addict and being told that I'm an addict when I am no longer addicted to opioid medication. But believe me, years and years of that went on because of back surgery and neck surgery and other types of surgery that I've spoken about before. I've had many surgeries, and I understand that when you have surgery, there's a need for medication. But some of those medications are highly toxic, dangerous, and many people have lost their lives to these medications. This is your host, the Dingy Dotterel. When you've got such a drastic medical history, such as mine, going to the doctor is sometimes a joke. But it's very tiring. And for many years, I avoided speaking the truth to my doctors, but that has changed. And now they look at me like I'm crazy. Because when I bring up the things that have happened to me, they say there's no way possible that this happened to you. You would not be alive. There's no way possible that you were sick from ticks. I've been told this over and over and over again. But if you don't know anything about Plum Island and the fact that ticks are carriers of biological diseases, then you haven't educated yourself. And being from a military family and understanding that these ticks have caused the death of thousands of people, I am fortunate to be alive, being bitten as many times as I have. And that's just a side note. The main point is when I go to the doctor and say, I've survived incest, being molested, being bitten by ticks and bees, having 22 surgeries, having multiple intimate, violent relationships where the post-traumatic stress is terrible, and being raised the way I was, they associate that with some mental disorder. And it might be evident that I have some issues, but I'm not stupid. I wasn't born last night. And I'm an educated person, and I know better. But there's a stigma that revolves around our own healthcare in society, and it's toxic. This is not okay. So what I've done for myself, if this helps any of you that are listening, I quit taking the opioids. I stopped cold turkey. I was on Lyrica for 15 years because I was misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia instead of the Lyme disease, which I didn't start testing positive for Lyme disease until I was 35 years old. And that was after having it at 11 years old, being ill from contracting Lyme disease or Powassan disease, which is viral, and almost dying, and having the doctors look at me out the side of their eye and say, "You're crazy. This never happened to you." And it's so unfortunate that we cannot take control of our own medical care. And back to the fact that I quit cold turkey during the pandemic, and having someone close to me trying to unalive themselves with a prescription medication that was given to them by the doctor, and then me saving their life, it woke me up to my own medical disaster. And I started speaking the truth, and I started weaning myself off all the medications, and it was very difficult. And then I got myself some exercise equipment, and I sat myself down in that learning chair and told myself, no more. No more narcotics, no more prescriptions. If there's an infection or a bacterial problem, yes, antibiotics are a good idea. Going to the dentist is a good idea. But when we continue to be hypochondriacs, when we bump our toe and we say we need narcotic medications, it's not a good idea, because then we put ourselves at risk, we put our children at risk, and those things that are sitting in our medicine cabinets are a danger to others. And we need to wake up that this is all part of those toxic cycles I've been talking about. I remember a day when my parents used to put their prescriptions on the bathroom sink in a row. And then later on, they would tell me that I need to stop seeing that shrink and taking those pills. And it was so unfortunate to hear that, but also to have the finger pointed at me when they were doing it themselves. I'm just saying, as adults, we need to have a better awareness to what we're putting in our body, and that we can heal sometimes better naturally than going to the doctor every time we think that something's drastically wrong, and it's just our body reacting to either our environment or what we're eating. When looking back at being raised in a legalistic military-style family and having a mother who drank, a stepfather who drank, a dad who drank, and a stepmom, I really don't know what she was doing, but she was scary. I remember becoming a teenager and seeing the pills and the hidden substances that I brought to the attention of many and asked questions, and became the problem because I was asking questions. But I remember the time when I was 11-ish and I could outdrink all of the adults around me, and this caused many problems. My mom had this crystal decanter set, and she filled it up with Jack Daniels, which became my favorite drink ever. But it all started with her saying, "You can't drink. You don't know what you're talking about." And I took the decanter set and drank all of the alcohol right in front of her, and her mouth hung open. She gasped for air and said, "Wow, she really can drink." And it was because I learned this from my parents. I learned to sneak their alcohol, and I learned to sneak their cigarettes, and I learned how to do exactly what they showed me how to do. I was acting appropriately to my upbringing, to the modeling I was being given. And no, it was not appropriate. And no, it was not okay. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that none of that was okay. That should have never happened. But it did. And it caused many problems for me because I became the bad guy. I became the addict. I became the toxic one. I became all of those things that you can imagine my parents said to me because they were narcissistic. And the other problem with that was me being addicted to any type of substance that came around. Paint, glue, and the hallucinations that come with that.
What?
And then doing street drugs later when I became a runaway, hitchhiking all around the country and meeting people of all sorts that had their own toxic upbringing or their own toxic addictions. I cannot elaborate it enough. If we do not become active participants in our own healing, we won't get anywhere. If you're having issues with any of the things I'm describing, please seek professional help and be honest about it. Don't allow people to hornswoggle you into believing that you can't be clean and sober, that you need things that are harmful to your body. Take it from someone who understands. There was a time when I stayed with a family member and I had been affected by everyone's toxic abuse on me as a child, and I was still a child. I went into the cabinet under the sink and I found the rat poison.
Uh-oh.
And I filled a glass full of water and tried to unalive myself with strychnine. It was a horrible experience. No one knew, and no one cared. I did this in front of the adults around me, and they had no idea what I had done. I should have been transported to the poison control center or to the hospital, to the emergency room, but none of that was happening because I didn't tell anyone. And there were instances of this all through my young adulthood because I was very isolated and rejected by the adults around me. It was like I didn't exist. So I'm telling you, if you feel like you don't exist and you feel like people don't care, change that for yourself. Start caring for yourself and make a difference in your own life. Learn how to take walks. Learn how to do that self-care and learn how to change the way you think about yourself because you are important. If you enjoy the content, please share. And once again, thank you, Spotify. Welcome to the Wandering Dotterel.